So, I just finished watching the 5 previous live-action Spider-Man movies before the MCU iterations. And, I had a good time. I enjoyed rewatching and reliving and revisiting those films. I think that they have their merits in some places and in some films more than others, but overall, I can't say I didn't have a good time. It was pretty fun. But look, let's really get down to it, because I watched all 5 of those films with as open of a mind as I possibly could have, trying not to just bring in my preconceived notions of both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And I have to say, after rewatching all 5 of those films, Tom Holland is by far and away the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker. If this is your first time on the channel, then please don't be afraid to subscribe, give this video a like, and join the Access Blockbusters crew. If you guys are into Spider-Man and can't wait for Spider-Man No Way Home just like I can't, then make sure to subscribe for more videos, as we are still in the season of Spider-Man. More videos to come, and hint hint wink wink if these videos do well, and Into the Spider-Verse video might be coming, so stay tuned. Now let's talk some Tom Holland, shall we? So yes, while I did enjoy Tobey Maguire for the most part as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and while I, shall we say, appreciated Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Peter Parker, I still, in my personal opinion, think Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield hold nothing to Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. We're going to talk about why in this video. And again, I want to make this clear, as I do with most of my videos, that this is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I've heard plenty of you in the comment section saying that Tobey is your favorite or Andrew is your favorite, and that's totally fine. But for me, it's just not even close. Not even close. Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. Reason number 1. Tom Holland is actually a kid. I mean, yes, he's in his 20s, but when you see him on screen, especially in Captain America Civil War, especially in Spider-Man Homecoming, maybe a little less so in Spider-Man Far From Home, but you still believe that this is a kid. Now, I'm not saying that in order for Spider-Man to work, he has to be a kid. What I am saying is that in most of the iterations of Spider-Man in live action, I'm talking Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man Far From Home, Peter Parker is supposed to be a 15 to 18-year-old child. And I'm sorry, but Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are not children. They do not look like children. And I'm not saying that Tom Holland looks like a child. I'm saying that he has that youthful energy about him that makes you believe he could fit in high school. It's just believable. Why is this important? Because yes, good Spider-Man stories can come when he's an adult. There are plenty of good Spider-Man stories where he's in college or where he's an adult, where he's dealing with actual adult problems. But when you're dealing with this iteration of Spider-Man where clearly he's young, he's coming into his own, it's important to establish his youthfulness because that's what sets him apart from the other heroes. He's not like Wolverine, who can't age and is old and gruff and jaded. He's not like Iron Man, who has lived through life and is now finally finding his purpose. He has been saddled with this incredible responsibility that has been burdened to him of being bitten by that spider, and he feels that he, as a kid, has a responsibility to save the world, or at least an obligation to do so. And that's what makes Spider-Man so relatable, is that he's just a normal person who all of a sudden gets thrust into this world. That's one of the fundamental things about the high school iteration of Peter Parker that I think Tom Holland just nails. And it's just not believable that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to high schools. Even though maybe Tobey Maguire might look like he's in high school and you could maybe pass Andrew Garfield off as a high schooler, their environments are just so cliche and stereotypical. Like the bullies are just throwing him against lockers and taunting him and hanging him upside down. It's just not believable. I think even Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man MCU films is so much more believable and adds to Peter Parker because he's not physically bullying Peter. It's more of verbal taunting, if you will. Reason number 2 is the duality. I think Tom Holland has the best balance between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You can argue that Tobey Maguire might be a better Peter Parker. Okay, I can take that. You can argue that Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man. I'm less inclined to believe that, but okay, sure. But to be quite honest, and again, understanding that everyone's opinions are valid, I don't quite understand people who say that either one of them, Tobey or Andrew, has a better grip on the duality of Spider-Man. Because I think Peter Parker, as played by Tom Holland, is the perfect blend of the two. When he's Peter Parker, he's nerdy, he's anxious, he's excited, he's a kid. He's ready to make his impact on the world, but yet he has so many of these little high school seemingly insignificant things that he wants to take care of. And as Spider-Man, he is being weighed down by his alter ego as Peter Parker because he feels he has a responsibility to save New York, to save the world, and in the MCU, I guess, to literally save the universe. It's that perfect blend of the two, of switching back and forth between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, that makes Tom Holland's character so good. Oftentimes in these Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, I felt like Peter Parker and Spider-Man were just two different characters, to be quite honest. It wasn't like one changed into the other, and that Tobey Maguire all of a sudden gained this confidence. It was more of just two different characters entirely. And for The Amazing Spider-Man, like I said in the reviews, it was more of Spider-Man was just the jerk version of Peter Parker, honestly. Reason number 3, and I think this is a big one, is that he's likable and he's funny. Now, you may not think that this is a big deal. You may not think that this is a big reason to really look at all, but I think that this plays a huge role into why I think Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Look, Tobey Maguire is likable enough. He's likable more in the sense of you pity him because he is just so down on his luck most of the time, whether or not it's at high school or even after high school in Spider-Man 2 and 3 with Mary Jane or with his financial problems, the fact that his door can't get fixed or whatever. Like, you feel bad for him, but he's not necessarily likable in the same way as most characters are likable. And I just think Andrew Garfield straight up isn't likable as Peter Parker or Spider-Man. He is just an absolute jerk most of the time, and it's kind of hard to watch. And when the other two are allowed to be funny, like Andrew Garfield maybe quipping sometimes when fighting the Rhino, or even Tobey Maguire just, cracking some jokes here and there, it's not organically funny. It just kind of feels forced in there most of the time. Because, in the comics, Spider-Man's supposed to be funny. Tom Holland's Spider-Man just feels like an extension of Peter Parker in terms of his humor. It feels like Peter Parker who is able to finally harness the part of himself that's funny, that's confident, and just really go for it. And Peter Parker is funny in an awkward, just kind of a cute way where you look at him and you go, ah, man, this kid, he doesn't have it all like, Flash Thompson might in that high school. But he's got some charm to him. He's funny. He's likable. But he's not likable enough to be considered popular. Because that's important. Peter Parker can be likable. In fact, he should be likable. But he shouldn't be popular. I think people get the two mixed up. I think that people think, he can't be popular, therefore he can't be likable. But no, it's just that the fact that people don't like him as much for who he is versus we, as the audience, liking him for who he is. And that's very evident in Spider-Man Homecoming, when a lot of the people in high school think he's just kind of a nerd. But we like the character of Spider-Man. And that's so relatable to a lot of people who feel unseen, who feel like they're not the popular ones at school or at work or in their circles. But they feel like, if you can just get to know me, then I'm a very likable person. And that's who Spider-Man is, the relatable character in the comics. And finally, I think one of the most important parts of Spider-Man's character that Tom Holland does so well is he carries the burden of Spider-Man's responsibility. It's amazing that in the appearances of Spider-Man in the MCU, not once have you heard, with great power comes great responsibility, or some paraphrase of it as we saw in The Amazing Spider-Man. Tom Holland's Peter Parker carries that burden without it having to be overtly said. He understands his role as a superhero. He knows that he has to do what's right, and he's yearning for the opportunity to do what's right. He carries that with him so well that he always feels like he has to do the right thing, and he struggles to make those decisions. For example, in Spider-Man Homecoming with the Vulture, he is just struggling. And eventually it's his over-eagerness to do good that makes him fall. And that's who Spider-Man is. He makes mistakes. He's a kid, but he's always striving to do the right thing because he understands his responsibility. Andrew Garfield, his Spider-Man is just out to kill criminals, basically. At least in the first movie. In the second movie, he's just so infatuated with Gwen Stacy that he doesn't really help that many people. Tobey Maguire, I think, does an admirable job of carrying the responsibility of Spider-Man, but it's very heavy-handed, if you will. I think it's done well, but it's really reinforced by Uncle Ben, who keeps coming back into his life and reminding him of that responsibility that he has. It's not so much that he carries it with him, it's rather that Uncle Ben is just constantly reminding him of the responsibility. Look, I think that all three Spider-Man actors do a great job in different ways with their characters, and I can't say that each one of them is unique and different. I just think that when you look at it and when you boil everything down, Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man and Peter Parker is the absolute best. Now, let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree, because I know a lot of you think that Andrew Garfield is better or Tobey Maguire is better, and I'd like to know why you think that in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and let me know what you think of Spider-Man and which actor you'd like to see play Spider-Man if Tom Holland was potentially recast. I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.